for the next, I would like to call Mr. Girish Sethi, Senior Director, TERI. He leads and manages the program on promoting efficiency in industrial sector, encompassing both large industries and small and medium enterprises. Please, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Diksha. So let me also, first of all, join my other panelists, other speakers, Mr. Flolo as well as Mr. Carter, in welcoming all the participants to this webinar on the India hydrogen landscape. We at TERI are very delighted to once again join hands with Messi. I think TERI has had a very close relationship, I would say at least since 2010, if I am not wrong, under the framework agreement which we have had with the Norwegian embassy, and we continue to enjoy very good close relationships with the embassy here in Delhi, and of course now with the consulate in Mumbai. So we are very happy to join hands with Innovation Norway in organizing this webinar, as well as I think a couple of more similar sessions for the benefit of the Norwegian business houses and all other stakeholders who have interest in working closely with India and expanding the business ties with a large democracy like India. So we really welcome this initiative from Innovation Norway and the Norwegian embassy, and we hope that this whole process will gain momentum. We have already seen the extremely good work which has already been initiated by Greenstat. We at TERI enjoy also a good relationship with Mr. Sturle, who is one of the speakers, I think, following me. And we hope to work closely with Greenstat and all other Norwegian companies in taking this whole process forward. Just for the benefit of those who do not know TERI, we are just one sentence. We are a not-for-profit research organization based out of New Delhi and have been working in the field of energy, environment, and sustainable development for many, many years. I would say close to 50 years. TERI was established in 1974. So over the last, I would say, close to around 2 years or so, we have also kind of reinvented ourselves in line with what has been happening globally with the interest on green hydrogen. And we have also focused on seeing where are the opportunities which lie in India for promoting green hydrogen in various sectors. And it was around 8 months back on 16 December 2020 that we launched our detailed technical analytical report on the potential role of hydrogen in India, which was launched by the Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog, Dr. Rajiv Kumar. It's a first of its kind cross-sectoral assessment of how hydrogen technologies can actually help in taking forward the ambitious agenda of a low carbon India by the mid-century. So without taking much time, I think we have an excellent set of speakers, I think, lined up after this opening session. And I will not take much time in talking about the landscape. We really know of the opportunities which lie with the Norwegian business houses, I think, as they have huge experience in this field. And I think I can just say one sentence that I think Indian industry is ready to embrace this new big challenge which the Prime Minister of India has mentioned during the Independence Day speech, launching the National Hydrogen Mission. And I think many large Indian companies have taken the lead, and some of them, like Reliance, are already represented in this panel today. So thanks once again to the Norwegian Embassy, Innovation Norway, and everybody involved in this initiative for having TERI as a partner. And we look forward to working with you closely in the coming months and days. Thank you. Back to you, Diksha.
Thank you, Mr. Sethi, for the overview. Now, before moving on to the next segment, I request all the participants to write their queries or questions in the chat box, please. Now, for our next segment, for context-setting presentation on the India hydrogen landscape, I would like to call upon Dr. Sachin Kumar, Fellow TERI, He has been working closely involved in a number of studies related to development and dissemination of energy efficient technological solution in energy intensive industrial subsector. So over to you, Dr. Sachin.
Sachin, you are muted. Please unmute yourself.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yes.
And can you please allow me to upload my presentation? Thank you. Is it visible?
Yes, Sachin.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Diksha. So, good evening, everyone. Let me take you very briefly to the what is happening in the hydrogen domain in the country. And let me start first with what is happening in TERI. I think Giriji has already mentioned that TERI has been working very closely in the hydrogen space. I think middle of the last year we came about with a policy brief on make hydrogen in India, in which we basically highlighted that India need to push ahead with the development and manufacturing of hydrogen technologies domestically. But after that, we came out with a detailed analysis of what is happening in the hydrogen domain in terms of the demand of hydrogen across various sectors of the economy. What are the technological options in which India can go ahead? And this report was launched in December by the Vice Chairman of the Niti Aayog, Dr. Rajiv Kumar. And this is the first of its kind report as mentioned by Girish ji. And let me very briefly take you what has been analyzed in that report, which is basically pertinent for India. So we basically analyzed that the hydrogen demand is going to increase by 5-fold by 2050. And if you can see on this graph on the right hand side that the demand is basically coming from the industry sector, and apart from the existing industry subsector like fertilizer or refineries, the main demand will be coming from the steel sector. And as all of you know, that steel is one of the most energy intensive sector in the Indian economy, industry sector per se. And any decarbonization effort in the steel sector will have a huge impact on the overall decarbonization aspect from the country. So this is one of the major sector in which we feel that the hydrogen use will be there in the coming few decades. And apart from the industry sector, there will be some demand on the heavy duty and the long distance trucking and the intercity bus segment, because we feel that for the two-wheeler, it is basically the battery or the electric vehicle that will be more suitable. But for the long distance haul, the hydrogen will play a crucial role. And similarly, in the power sector by 2050, we feel that the hydrogen will be used for the long-term storage vector, because when we have more use of wind and solar in the grid, then the hydrogen will use for the storage will be there. But most importantly, what we feel and what we found out from our analysis is that by 2030, the cost of hydrogen will fall. And I think India is in very unique position in a way that the prices of the natural gas and the price of the electricity, renewable electricity, that is very unique for India, because we have very low cost of renewable electricity and we have high cost of natural gas, and we are importing a major chunk of it. So we feel by 2030, the cost of hydrogen will be little less than $2 per kg, and India is well suited to produce the green hydrogen using the renewable electricity. As I said, the natural gas is mainly imported, and majority of the hydrogen that is being produced in the country right now from the steam methane reforming route, that may not be a viable option, because a lot of work needs to be done to understand the carbon capture and storage aspect. Because in India, still the studies needs to be done to understand what are the locations where we can store carbon and how we can use it. So a lot of work needs to be done. But in the terms of the RE potential in the country, we feel that the green hydrogen production to RE will be a best route for India. And going by the high cost of grid electricity, the off-grid solar system will be well suited to the country. So apart from this, the cost aspect and the demand aspect, I think what is required from Indian point of view is that we need to focus more on the cross-sectoral coordination. I think we can take the example of the HyNet project in the Britain, where the companies are coming together and they are starting a cluster of using cluster where the hydrogen can be used across different industry. It can help in minimizing the cost. I think same sort of model or same sort of cluster approach can be used in the country also. And in India, I think we need to focus more now from the R&D stage to commercialization aspect of different technological options. And as I talked about the use of the hydrogen in the industry sector, I think it is more important for India now to think of some sort of emission penalty. And I know in EU, there are discussion on the carbon border tax. So some sort of emission penalty has to be there in India also in near future from the industry sector if we want to certainly go about the decarbonization of the industry sector. And this is especially true for the hard to abate sector like steel. And apart from that, if we have to increase the use of hydrogen across different sectors, mainly in the industry, then we have to come out with some sort of mandates and standard, create the market. Because ultimately what is required is that the manufacturer or the producer, he should have the confidence that the product that he's going to make by making huge investment in new technologies, that is being sold in the market. So in that context, some sort of the buyers club or the corporate club, they can come together and demand a low carbon product so that the producer has some confidence. So I think these are some of the activities which India should do in the near future. And apart from that, I think it is well known that India wants to create the electrolyzer in the country, and there are different challenges. But I think these are, apart from the challenges, it is the opportunities that exist in this domain in India that we can go ahead with manufacturing electrolyzer in the country, because market is still at a very new stage, at an early stage, and it is still wide open because globally we can see that a lot of electrolyzer manufacturing is still not being done at a large scale. So market is still open. And most importantly, in India, what we have is the domestic research expertise. All of our premier research institutes, IITs, CSI laboratories, they are working on one or other domain of hydrogen production or storage or use. So I think that academic interest and academic expertise is there in the country. So it's a huge opportunity for us to leverage on that expertise. And most importantly, I think the policy initiative is there where we talk about the Atmanirbhar Bharat or Make in India approach. So all these aligns well with the context of going ahead with the manufacturing electrolyzer in the country. Although I'm well aware of the challenges that are there because of the companies that are already in this domain, they have a head start, the huge investment that is required to make this manufacturing in the country. But again, these challenges can be met if we have the will and we have the policy initiative that is already in place. But let me also take you through the recent initiatives apart from what has been done till now. I think as we all know that beginning with the budget speech by the finance minister, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, I think on the Independence Day, our Honorable Prime Minister has announced the National Hydrogen Mission, and this is basically will be giving a good boost to overall hydrogen technology production as well as use in the country. And basically, NHM is aiming to make India global hub for the production and export of green hydrogen. And it is basically including all the aspects of hydrogen production, its storage, transportation, end use, and all those things are covered in the National Hydrogen Mission. And apart from that, this hydrogen mission, we also know that Mr. R.K. Singh, the power minister, has already announced that the green hydrogen purchase obligation for industry sector like fertilizer and petroleum. So all this is giving a right kind of policy push that is required to ensure that hydrogen is being produced and used in the country. And we also came across that the draft electricity rule bill 2021, which also talks about that the discoms in the country, they can meet their renewable purchase obligation by purchasing green hydrogen. So all these is basically are giving a direction to that the hydrogen is going to be a major fuel or heat source in India. And apart from this policy initiative, which has been undertaken by the government of India, I think the PSUs and the private sector players, they're also playing a major role. Like Indian Oil Corporation, they have already announced to develop their own first green hydrogen plant in Mathura Refinery. NTPC Limited, another major PSU, the largest power producer in the country, they have also plans to generate green hydrogen in the western part of the country. And apart from these big PSUs, the private sector like Reliance, we all know that the last week, Mr. Mukesh Ambani, the chairman and MD of Reliance Industry Limited, he talked about 1-1-1 strategy, $1 kg price of 1 kg of hydrogen within 1 decade. So I think the great push is there from the industry also. Similarly, Adani Group, another big conglomerate in India. So they have an MOU with the Italian counterparts. So to producing hydrogen from the renewable feedstock. So all this is showing that apart from the government, the private sector, the PSU, all are aligning well with this, the push for hydrogen production and use in the country. Similarly, when we talk about the transport aspect of the hydrogen, again, IOCL is basically working to develop the fuel cell technology. They have an MOU with the Tata Motors. NTPC has been working in the region of the country, and we all know that Ladakh and Leh has been aimed to be developed as a carbon neutral region. So NTPC is working in the transportation sector in that area. Similarly, the Indian Railways, one of the largest transporter, they have also come out with their plans, and we all know that they have announced to be carbon neutral by 2030. So they have come out with a pilot project to introduce India's first hydrogen fuel cell train in Haryana. So all these show that all the big players, all the major stakeholders, they are taking part in the hydrogen work. In terms of storage also, I think IUCL is working with IIT Kharagpur, premier research institute in the country, on developing the hydrogen storage aspect. And similarly, on the hydrogen transportation, NTPC is taking the lead. So this is just to give a glimpse of what is happening across from the policy side, from the public sector side, from the private sector side. So all this is showing a great potential in India to be working in the hydrogen domain. So I think in terms of the potential pathways for collaboration between India and Norway, there are different subsectors, like in the hydrogen production. We need to have collaboration with the leading technology providers in the electrolyzer technology. And as I mentioned, India, the research institute, they are working very hard on the hydrogen domain. So there is a need to develop sort of a collaboration between the Indian Academic Institute with the Norwegian counterpart to have more R&D on this particular domain. In terms of industry, as I mentioned, that industry is going to be one of the major end-use sector of hydrogen in the country. There is a need to go ahead with the demonstration project. We can go for a cluster approach, or we can work with a specific sector like the steel sector, which is going to be a major user of hydrogen in future. And I think in this domain, there is need to work more collaboratively with the industry sector as such. And TERI, through their industry charter, has a great lead into it. I think industry charter, just to give you a very brief idea, this is basically industry charter for near zero emission ambition by 2050. This is a voluntary announcement by different industry, and this charter was framed during the New York Climate Week last year, where in the 6 leading companies, they came together and they voluntarily commit for near zero emission. So, and now this, the charter is increasing, and we have 27 companies on board till now, and this number is increasing day by day as more and more companies are joining this initiative. And TERI is basically serving as a secretariat to this coalition. So this is just to give you an idea that Indian companies are on board, and TERI has a very good linkages with all these companies. In terms of the hydrogen used in transport, I think, as I already mentioned, as per our analysis, hydrogen will be more useful for the long distance trucking and heavy duty transport area. So we can think of working along the industrial corridor, like Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridor. Similarly, we can work on piloting the fuel cell ferry along the inland waterways. And here I will like to give an example of the discussion that TERI is having with the government of Kerala. I think the late last week, we had a meeting with the Minister of Fisheries as well as the Chief Minister Office in Kerala, wherein we discussed about exploring the potential of water highway inland navigation for the cargo movement in Kerala. So interest has been shown by the different states altogether in the hydrogen sector. And I think, as has been mentioned by the Council General initially, that the safety and standard in which Norway has a great experience and expertise. So there is a great work that can be done on the safety aspect of using hydrogen, transporting and storage. And we also have to do some sort of knowledge sharing aspect on all these aspects. So this is in brief what I wanted to intend, where we can work collaboratively in between India and Norway. So let me stop here right now, and I will be happy to respond to any query that we have. Over to you, Diksha.
Thank you, Sachin, for giving us the overview on the potential pathways to adopt the hydrogen in the country and what TERI is currently doing. Now, I would like to hand it over to Mr. Sturla Harlard Pedersen, Chairman and CEO, Norwegian Indo Center of Excellence Hydrogen. Mr. Pedersen is working to support the Government of India Indian Oil Corporation, who recently signed a statement of intent with Greenstat Hydrogen in India, a subsidiary of Greenstat Norway, for setting up a center of excellence on hydrogen. Over to you, Zma. Okay. Mr. Pearson, we can't hear you. Yes, Gargi, I can hear you.
Okay. As it is. Switch and switch and switch. This is a new sound. Okay, we try again. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. To start over again, thank you very much for the invitation and the opportunity to be here today to talk about Greenstat and the Center of Excellence. We have heard earlier today about Norway and Norway's achievement in hydrogen over the last century. And the reason why Greenstat decided to go to India has also been mentioned here, about the growth and the opportunities that India represent for Norwegian companies. The Greenstat set up its operation here about 1.5 years ago, just before the pandemic started. And the reason why the Greenstat wanted to go to India was because we see, as I mentioned, growth opportunities. We see that the challenge that climate change is representing is a challenge that needs international collaboration. And we see challenges in India. Over the years, we have seen how pollution, how the climate change are affecting the farmers and the cities. And we thought that with the knowledge, background, and experience, we could provide some assistance in this area. So what we wanted to do was set up a center of excellence where we could bring all the stakeholders together. It was both from the government side as we see that the opportunity that is ahead of us within the green hydrogen needs to be established framework from the policies, regulations side, but also to build institutions, and the capacity building is an important part of it. So we wanted to make sure that the government could be engaged in this, and that the government could learn from earlier experiences and projects abroad, particularly in Norway. We have heard that Norway have more than 50 projects ongoing, and we have been working with hydrogen since 1927. So this technology and this experience and expertise that Norway have was important to transfer and to share with our Indian counterparts to help them to conquer the climate change threat that we have experienced over the last decades, and which has been accelerating and has affecting many lives, and where India also are spending more than 7% of the GNP to compensate for these damages. But we also wanted to set up a platform for the industries, because the industries today have little experience and understanding of the value chain, and we wanted to make sure that Indian stakeholders and Indian companies who really want to make a difference and who wants to participate in this transition knew where to go and to get information about companies in Norway who has knowledge within the value chain. It was manufacturing of equipment, critical equipment in the production of clean hydrogen, or it was for storage or transportation or end application. So this knowledge will be available in the Center of Excellence. There has been set up a web page which is giving the users an opportunity to go in and find information. There is a library where you can find best practices, pilot projects that have been conducted all over the world, and you can learn from these projects, and you can use this knowledge when you would want to set up your own projects here in India. Either it is within production or transportation or any place in the value chain. It is important because of the speed that we need to transform and the transition from fossil to renewable. It will be important that we are learning from others, so we don't have to invent the wheel, which is a concept that has been mentioned a couple of times. So for us, it was very important also to bring in the other party, which is the institutions, research institutions, and also the universities. As we know, the green hydrogen and renewable will create more than 40 million jobs on a global scale. And there is a race to understand and to learn about green hydrogen and to be able to participate in this global market, and particularly based upon the Honorable Prime Minister's promise and goal that he communicated on Independence Day, where India has an aim to be a global green hydrogen hub. I think it is important that every stakeholder is working together on this plan to be able to successfully implement it. And this is a challenge, as I mentioned many times before. It is not for one company, it's not for one industry. It is actually, the success depends on international cooperation. But it always begins at home, and I think India need the help and support to make sure that the differences in policies or lack of policies, lack of understanding between the different states are also sorted out. And I have been really impressed with my conversations and by the meetings I've had with TERI and many other research institutes here in India, who also work together with Greenstead, who also share the same vision and dream to make a green happen. So we really hope that the new Center of Excellence and its partner will be able to provide and transfer and share the technology, expertise and know-how that has been built up over many years, so we can achieve the goals that has been set for India, but also for the world. Because this is, as we have mentioned many times before, it is not only for India. Pollution and the climate change is affecting all of us. So it means that we need to cooperate on this task. So by that, I will thank you for the attention and wish you all the best on this seminar.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson, for bringing up the challenges and what are the things to be seen for the future perspectives, and how everyone's initiative is important to move forward in this direction. And now we can move on to our next segment. And before that, I request all the participants to put their queries in the chat box, please. And for our next session, I hand over the floor to Mr. Sethi to moderate the session on stakeholders' perspectives from Norway and India. So over to you, Mr. Sethi.
Thanks, Diksha, again. So, am I audible, I guess? I think, Diksha, everybody else? Am I audible?
Sir, you're audible. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, thanks. So, we'll now have this perspectives from different stakeholders. I think we have an excellent set of speakers in this session. Of course, we have heard from the Norwegian side, from Mr. Sturle, as well as from the Consul General, as well as Mr. Carter, earlier on the opportunities which Norway offers in the realm of hydrogen sector, green hydrogen specifically. And also Sachin, my colleague, did outline of the opportunities available in India for the Norwegian companies. So let's just get started quickly. I think we are just around 10 minutes behind schedule. So I would start by requesting Mr. Manoj Kumar Upadhyay. He is the advisor in the energy vertical at Niti Aayog, and I think he has been spearheading and working closely in the field of energy and environmental international cooperation vertical at Niti Aayog, and has been also contributing in the field of renewable energy generation as well as on climate change issues. And I think in this whole subject of hydrogen, Niti Aayog has been playing a major role, I think, over the last 2 years. So over to you, Mr. Upadhyay, for your comments from the government perspective, from the Niti's perspective. How do you see this whole landscape opening up for international collaboration? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I have a small and short presentation. Can you allow me to share my presentation?
Yes, please. I think we could. Please go ahead.
Okay, but
So you have the presenting right now. You can share your presentation.
sir, can you see my presentation?
Yes, sir. We can see your presentation.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So, as in early session, like TERI already explained that how hydrogen is more important than other energies, and how we wanted to move it, and what are the challenges, and what are the different demand and supply sectors. So I'll take forward discussion. So my talk is basically going to be a roadmap how we are attempting to be self-sufficient in our energy side, and how hydrogen is going to help us to reduce our import, and what would be the requirement to make a hydrogen economy in India. So, as you're aware that we are an importing nation and we are importing our energy. 85% of our energy is imported from different country, and
Sorry to interrupt you. Sir, sorry to interrupt you. Can you run this presentation in the slide mode?
Come again, madam. So what I have to do?
The presentation mode, sir.
My presentation is not visible.
It's visible, sir, but it's showing all the slides. Can you?
Okay. Just a minute.
Okay.
I think, Manojji, I think just put it on the slide mode. I think there is a button at the bottom on the right side. If you just click
Yes,
it,
I'm just searching that button. But there is an issue.
No, on the right side at the bottom. Yeah.
Yes. Sir, there is a right. I hope this is.
Okay, I think this should be okay. I think it's.
Just a minute. Now this is okay, sir. Can you see? Can you see all? This is one by one. So just give me
one by one. I think you can.
So I will share my slide. I will speak only without having slides. No issue.
Let it be there, sir. I think it's okay. I think we can.
So starting with my discussion on the import of the energy, and as you are aware that we have almost 160 billion import. It's include all the crude oils and coal and other finished product. So it's also include export, some frictional export as well. So we wanted to see the transition from import to the self-sufficiency, and we can see that today there is 18% electricity that is contributing in entire our energy basket, and almost 83% which is the oil and gas sector. And by 2030, we can see that at max 28 to 30% electricity can be maximum that can be in the energy basket, and rest would be from fossil fuel side. So the major challenge is how to balance this portfolio, because the oil and gas is a major emitters, and there is a lot of processes where we cannot resolve this issue. So that's why India is thinking about a new fuel which may have less emission or almost zero emission. And then we found that hydrogen is going to be work, because it can reduce our import, and we have self-sufficiency as we have a lot of renewable energy, and we are focusing more on the renewable energy. Target is huge also. So lot of thinking has been done on which hydrogen could be the roadmap and what hydrogen can be taken. So all hydrogen, including the brown and gray and blue hydrogen, which is already in the market, and India is consuming almost 8.5% of the global hydrogen production. That's a great hydrogen production, and likely this will be increasing in the coming days, because the processes and the economic development will basically require a lot of other things. So we're thinking that whether we go for the gray to blue, because we can put the CCS technology and we can capture carbon, and otherwise we can go for the green. So we decided that we'll go for the green hydrogen. Reason being, CCS technology is not fully mature, and there is a cost for the CCS technology, and it is not 100%. Is not going to capture 100% emission, and there is at max 80% theoretical efficiency, and still 20% would be the emission. And after capturing the carbon, we have to utilize this carbon, otherwise there will be a huge safety and security issues. So the thinking of Niti Aayog is to have a major roadmap for the green hydrogen, and then how to achieve the green hydrogen self-sufficiency in production and in the entire value chain. So that was done. So we have also taken help of TERI, VCG, RMI, and we have drafted one report, and which is not publicly available. It is still in the pipeline, and there is a lot of consultation has happened with the stakeholders. So we have basically decided that first we have to frame out the demand, because once there is a demand and there is a demand scenario, then definitely we can put some supply side things, and then supply and demand can be managed through some regulatory and policy mechanism. So we calculated that since India is already consuming 8.5% of global hydrogen demand, and if we can see the refinery and fertilizer is a major consumer, and if we can easily replace their gray hydrogen demand, and then we can easily generate the green hydrogen demand, and then subsequently we can move in the steel and the transportation sector. After that, we can move to storage and all. So refinery, we can easily move, and we can generate almost 3 million ton demand by 2030. And in fertilizer, though the fertilizer demand will be, if we can say, 1 million ton by 2030, but the impact of the green hydrogen, because the cost, if we compare with the gray hydrogen, is more. We service to refinery sector. So refinery, we can see there is a hardly, if we can say, 3 to 4% impact on the pricing. And if we go for the 100% of green hydrogen, especially for the new refineries, then there is almost nil. There is no impact on the price, and we have not taken any green premium. It's only pure calculation without considering any carbon credit or green premium on the product side. So if we include the green premium and the carbon credit side, then definitely this is going to be a huge success in the refinery sector. Fertilizer, because there is a lot of subsidy that we are providing on the NPK side and India side. So this has seen that though fertilizer in the fertilizer sector, the ammonia, they're importing ammonia. They're also producing domestic ammonia based on the LNG import. So the fluctuation in the LNG pricing is also fluctuating the domestic as well import ammonia pricing. So we can substitute fertilizer ammonia. So we can basically substitute it to green ammonia. And if green ammonia export is allowed, because there is a huge demand in the green ammonia, especially in the Europe, because Europe is thinking almost they have declared themselves for the net zero side. So they are going to replace all their other fuel with the green ammonia, especially power plant as well. And Japan is also looking after the green ammonia, and they have also contacted with Australia. So there is a huge demand of green ammonia, and if the fertilizer plant allowed to export the green ammonia, so they can balance they can offset their increased price. So the fertilizer would be the target sector, and the steel is not the obvious choice, because we don't have the DRE based plant right now. We have the blast furnace and arc based steel plant. So for DRE, easily DRE can be replaced with the green hydrogen side. But new steel plant, whatever is planned, that must be on the green hydrogen, because entire Europe is going levy the border tax, which is going to be start by 2026. So the export of the steel, if we are not moving on the green side, so that is going to be a tougher challenge for us. Even for the entire economy, if we are not moving more on the greener side, then there will be a lot of carbon taxes, and export will be uncompetitive in coming days. So in that way, we have analyzed, and in your presentation, especially in the TERI report, that we have seen that by 2050 there will be a 5-time growth of the green hydrogen across sector, and it has a capacity to reduce almost 30 to 40% emission. And this is only fuel till now is discovered that basically can neutralize the emission of the hard to abate sector, especially the cement sector, iron, steel sector, and heavy road transportation, shipping sector, and refinery sector. Because they're consuming a lot of fuels in their processes. So so the green hydrogen obviously a choice, but the challenge is the pricing, because right now whatever gray hydrogen is consumed, it's almost less than $2 per kg is available. And if there is fluctuation in the LNG prices, so might be it is going. So there is theoretical calculation that it will be maybe a 140, maybe a $2 per kg, but experts and industry are saying that it is beyond $2. It may be beyond $2 because of the LNG price fluctuation. So if we compare our green hydrogen production right now and compared to the gray hydrogen production, then there is a huge difference, because there is a calculation that there is almost $3 to $4 per kg is the price in India. And again, the storage is an issue because there is a cryogenic tank you require, and there is a specialized vehicle you require to transport hydrogen. So the challenge is, this first challenge is the pricing side, that how to go for size and scale so that we can bring down the prices, which can basically beat the gray hydrogen price, and even they can basically compete, and they can replace the entire gray hydrogen, and green hydrogen also find new sectors. And the strategy for the transportation, how we can transport the hydrogen so that it can be utilized in different sector. So the calculation is saying that if the green hydrogen is coming to $1 to $1.5 per kg, close to $1.5 per kg, then it is going to replace the gray hydrogen. And for that, we have to adopt demand side theory. So we have to put a massive demand number so that there will be a massive supply generation units. And the biggest challenge is the two. One is the electricity, because electricity is 60 to 70% portion of the green hydrogen production, and the rest is the electrolyzer cost. And the electrolyzer, till now we have IPR issue, and we don't have a domestic manufacturing on the electrolyzer. Especially China is producing electrolyzer, and Germany have highest IPR. So the ecosystem to build and manufacture the electrolyzer, plus how to bring down the electricity cost, because though the renewable energy tariff is coming out 2 to 2.5 rupees per unit, but if it is seen to the factory gate, then it is not 2 to 2.5 rupees. If you add the ISTN charges as a cross subsidy and duties, so it's almost 3 and 3.5 rupees per unit. So at that price, it is going to be almost $4. The green hydrogen going to be a $4 cost. That is going to be unviable. So Niti Aayog and Ministry of Power and MNRE is working on this two dimensions, and how to bring down the electricity cost, and what would be the solution for the electrolyzer. So Ministry MNRE is preparing a document where there will be a demand obligations for the different sector, so that we can put a certain demand number to have a incentive and have a supply side scenario. Secondly, they have also coming with the PLI scheme for the electrolyzer, and they have consulted the stakeholder so that the technology and the IPR expert can collaborate with the investor, and they can set up the domestic manufacturing plant. And once there is a size and a scale in this sector, then we are hoping that we can get green hydrogen as at 1 to 1.5 kg per kg. And it has been discussed in our delegations and stakeholder meeting that if we set a target of almost 60 or 100, 60 to 100 gigawatt electrolyzer. So if we don't have any target, and it is $3 to $4 per kg. But we are aiming that by 2025, if we are putting target of 60 gigawatt of electrolyzer, which is of 5 million ton of demand, so that may be less than $3 per kg hydrogen cost. And by 2030, if the demand is coupling and it's moving more than 60 gigawatt, then it may be the $1 and $1.55 per kg. Despite that, we have to keep electricity prices in the range of 2 to 2.5 rupees per unit. And for that, ministry has already announced that ISTN will be given to all open access charges, which is going to utilize this thing for green hydrogen production. Secondly, they are also planning to connect all green hydrogen production unit through the ISTN, so that there should be no state transmission charges. And they're coming with a lot of new regulations so that this price is going to be minimized. Recently, Ministry of Power has circulated a consultation paper on the rule for green energy open access. So they have come out with a lot of new ideas. So once policies and regulations for reducing the electricity prices, they declared and they mandated, and there is a green hydrogen mandate on the different scenario on the sectors, we are hoping that we will achieve size and scale of the green hydrogen. And then we can see that if we can put some EBITDA of the green premium, because our country is not going to pay green premium, our consumers are not very, their power purchasing power priority is not so high. So the putting a green premium on them is a tough challenge. But the pilot project and the other actions taken by NTPC and all, this is showing that the green hydrogen is picking momentum in the India, and a lot of PSUs without any mandate, they have started experimenting green hydrogen for the transportation. So we are thinking that green hydrogen may not be a very viable solution theoretically for transportation, but NTPC and all, they are experimenting, and lot of other innovators and lot of other companies, especially the private sector companies, they started experimenting green hydrogen for the commercial and long distance buses. So the scenario is changing, and there is a lot of movement, and we are hoping that we will achieve our green hydrogen size and scale by 2030. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Manoj Kumar. I think this was quite nice to hear the views of NITI, that you are rightly so, I think, focusing quite a lot on creating the demand for hydrogen, and that will actually help bring down the prices in the coming years, and then reaching parity with the gray hydrogen in the next 5 to 10 years. I think hearing also, I think from you directly about the possibility of a PLI scheme, performance incentive scheme for electrolyzers, is also being discussed in the government circles. That also is, I remember when TERI released this report in December 2020, the Vice Chairman of NITI Aayog did mention in his remarks about considering electrolyzers for the PLI, like for many other sectors in India. So thanks a lot, sir, I think, for your comments. I'll now move over to Dr. Ashok Lele. I think we have heard Dr. Ashok Lele in many other forums. He's the director of the National Chemical Laboratory Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, which is one of the largest bodies in India working on the research side. Dr. Lele has a vast understanding on the hydrogen value chain and the latest advances in the fuel cell area as well. Over to you, Dr. Lele, for your brief comments. I think we are a bit running short, so I would request you to limit your comments to maybe another 5 to 6 minutes, and then we can, so that we can have the opportunity to hear other speakers as well. Over to you, Dr. Lele, please.
Yeah, thank you, Giriji. I will keep very brief because a lot of numbers have already been said and a lot of information has already we've heard. So I really do not want to repeat any of it. Just make a few points that first of all, the leapfrogging in India for gray to green is a good idea. Not just because of many reasons that Mr. Manoj Kumar said, but also the fact that we really as a country do not have much scope for bluing the hydrogen. We do not have really, saline aquifers or basalt strata that is identified where CO2 can be sequestered. And essentially, if we look at very large scale deployment of blue hydrogen, utilization of CO2 to make value added chemicals and materials is really not an option. We will have to sequester CO2. Just CO2 capture doesn't make any sense because you have to worry about what to do with that CO2. And so it has to be sequestered, and we really do not have much hope for that. So as for India, we really do not have much scope for going from gray to blue to green. So we will have to leapfrog from gray to green. So I think that is the right approach for India. The second point I want to add on is while a lot of has been said about the prices of renewable electricity and how regulatory framework in transmission, distribution, taxation we hope to bring the renewable electricity prices down. There's also the fact that if we really have to bring this down, then we have to also look at back integration to the primary source of power. So for solar, I think at some point of time as a country, we have to move away from importing solar panels and get to actually manufacturing that in India. Because once you get back integration, once you incorporate economies of scale, the prices will come down. Because once you look at solar to hydrogen, let us say, then it is essentially you're looking at all capex, right? You put in capex and the OPEX is free as far as solar is concerned, figuratively, right? And so it all becomes a capex game. And if you really want to bring the costs down, then you have to start back integrating to manufacturing even solar in India, right? Instead of importing panels. So if we have that strategy, the renewable electricity prices will come down. And that helps the manufacturing of gray hydrogen at the right price point. In terms of capex of electrolyzers, I think I heard there is earlier speakers talk about technologies available in India or R&D base available in India for green hydrogen manufacturing. While that is the case, honestly, we are still at a much lower TRL level. So learning from what Sturle was talking about, learning from more developed countries where the TRL levels of these technologies are much higher would be a good option. However, at the same time, there are certain programs in India that have been running. For example, in CSIR, there's a special purpose vehicle called the NMITLI, which has been very nice and has really pushed the focus from science to technology development. All the fuel cell activities that CSR has been doing is through the NMITLI program. So such programs where there is a pure focus on technology, I believe needs to be enhanced. The DST and CSR together are coming out with a joint mission focused on such technology development, which hopefully, our goal is to support the National Hydrogen Energy Mission of MNRE. And we want to do things that will be in support of that. For example, developing core technologies that are very important, whether it is catalysis, membrane, carbon fibers and things like that, which are really core technologies. Somebody has to develop them in India. And so that indigenization of such technologies and doing R&D, which is focused on what is specific for India. For example, we have 7,500 kilometers of sea coast available to us. We have plenty of seawater. We think we have a lot of water available, but that is not really the case. On the other hand, seawater is available. So technologies which are focused on seawater electrolysis is something that India should certainly look at. This is really at very low TRL there. A lot of scientific challenges exist, but as a country, we need to focus on some of these very India-specific challenges as well. In the DST CSR mission, we are also looking at creating a testing infrastructure. I think we really need to have a large testing platform where things like quick validation of POC, quick validation of other technologies, scaling up of many discoveries that happen in our universities can be done at a centralized level. This could be a hub and spoke model, but having such testing infrastructure, which is open access, easily available is again, I think, a need for India. Some really strong effort has to be made in harmonizing standards and in skill development. I think these two are the other things that I want to emphasize in this small pitch here. And finally, in terms of electrolyzers themselves, coming back to green hydrogen, of course, scale, as Mr. Manoj Kumar said, 60 to 100 gigawatts is a great number. That scale will bring down the cost for sure. But we will also have to look at, interesting and novel technology concepts like high amount of modularization, where many of the balance of plant components or balance of system components are today readily available in India. Their costs, their prices have already come down because they have been used in other sectors at large scale. So we need to engineer, bring in a little more innovation to see how much modular can we make these electrolyzers and bring the capex down. So with that, I think I don't want to belabor these points. There are other technologies that India should look at, for example, anion exchange membrane, methane pyrolysis. In fact, if you use biomethane and do pyrolysis, you're not only, you have the potential to be carbon negative, but also if you can valorize the carbon and have the right technology, you can valorize the carbon. Hydrogen will be really at far lower than even $2 per kg. So these kinds of technologies which are very specific to India is something we should really focus on, right? In addition to collaborating with Norway or Germany or whoever else to get technologies that are already at a very high TRL level. Certainly those have to be brought into India right now, but we also need to focus on those technologies which are very, very focused on India, because we are in this ecosystem and there are differences between what is important in India and what is outside. So we should focus on what is also available in India. Those resources should be used as much as possible. So with that, I think I will stop here and let other participants express their views.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Ashok Dele. I think, as always, I think you have highlighted 2 or 3 points which, in my perspective, are extremely important and were not touched by the earlier presenters. I think this point of moving from this point of that we don't have much opportunities for CCS, and I think more importantly, I think what you refer to on this whole subject of technology development, the mission between CSIR and DST, and the focus on indigenization of technologies, I think, and linking up this whole thing with the past experience of India, where we are still talking about whether we should be going in for more imports of solar and or doing manufacturing now. So maybe we should focus quite a lot now on the indigenization, I think, and that's a point which you refer to. Thanks a lot once again. I think, of course, the issues of standard and skill development are extremely important points which you did not elaborate much. We'll come back to you, sir, in subsequent sessions which we plan to organize on this subject and take advantage of your extreme deep knowledge on this subject. Thanks once again. I'll now move over to, thank you, sir. I'll now move over to Dr. Anurag Pandey. He's the R&D lead at Reliance Industries Limited and has been leading the hydrogen economy related activities at RIL. We have all heard in the past few weeks and months about the plans of Reliance. And over to you, Dr. Pandey, to talk about Reliance's plans, specifically if you wish to, or overall on the hydrogen economy landscape, which is the theme of this particular inaugural session with the Norwegian companies. Over to you.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Girish?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So again, just as Dr. Dele mentioned, a lot has been already said and, discussed on the hydrogen. So without, let's say, revisiting those points and saving time because we're already running on the, running late on the agenda. I just wanted to mention, obviously, the theme of the, the session itself is like the opportunity, right? What the hydrogen brings in. In Reliance, we have obviously our chairman in the last AGM and this AGM as well mentioned, the new energy brings in the, the new growth engine for not just for, the company, but also for India particularly, right? Because we all know, as Mr. Manoj Kumar said earlier, our import bills are about $160 billion on the, import of energy itself. Hydrogen is the only way, where we can think of, not just the energy independence, but also probably look at a future where, India can position itself as an energy exporter, right? Probably that's the first time we may have not ever thought of that. Now, why hydrogen, right? I mean, when you look at the entire new energy space itself, you very quickly realize that the electricity, the renewable electricity can only take you so far. I mean, in the entire mix of energy, probably 20-30%, or maximum you can put, push it 40% if at all. So hydrogen allows you to, to increase that share, right? I mean, of the renewable energy in the entire energy mix itself. Hydrogen is one energy, fuel, which can obviously handle hard to abate sectors. It does the sector coupling pretty well. Obviously, it's like a Swiss knife to the energy and the material area, right? I mean, that is what we all know. So it's a versatile, let's say, element which can be used in various ways, right? Right from the as an energy vector, but also from a storage point of view, and obviously from a feedstock point of view as well. So as from Reliance is concerned, when we looked at what we think we should have as our next growth energy engine, new energy, the whole renewable energy space itself turned out to be, no brainer, to be very frank. But we knew that, we have to start from the renewable electricity and, take it all the way to the hydrogen. And, as an industry, through the last two AGMs, we have kind of, let's say, declared our plans, what we are going to do in this space. And, probably for people who are not aware of this, just to review what our chairman has already put in the public domain, we are starting right from the electrons, which is basically, producing the electricity from the solar, farms, and to put up those solar plants, we will also put up the manufacturing facility to build the solar right from the the silicon itself, right? Then that electricity could be used for, by using the electrolysis technology, we can produce the green hydrogen, and eventually use it in various applications, including, fuel cell for the highest possible efficiency. Obviously, the renewable electricity is an intermittent, and to handle that problem, we are also looking at the battery technology. So with these four pillars, we are trying to handle the entire new energy end-to-end, value chain, and we are looking at two layers where we are producing the electrons and the protons. So I mean the hydrogen molecule itself, but to produce these two electricity and hydrogen, the equipments and the machinery is required, right? I mean that also will be. We are looking at manufacturing, those things in India at a gigawatt scale, so that we can achieve the economy of scale, which is important. To keep the cost at a price point where it is, let's say, viable for the Indian market, right? Indian market gives you, tremendous opportunity in terms of size, but the caveat is that, it has to be also met at a, lower price point as compared to our other, global friends. So we have a very holistic approach to this. And recently, just a couple of days ago, our chairman again declared our aspiration to, do hydrogen 111, which basically, says that, to hydrogen to be produced at $1 per kg, with a supply chain of $1 per kg, and within a decade. So we look forward to achieving that, by 2030. And obviously, as everybody knows, this, new energy area itself is too big for any single individual or company or nation to handle, right? And that is where we are looking at partnership and collaborations, alliances. So we are going all out, across globe, and obviously we are talking to our friends from the Norway. We have been talking to them for quite some time, and we are trying to see how all those high level of technology, high TRL levels of technology can be put in together in a very systematic, like a puzzle, to ultimately achieve this cost parity, right? I mean, once you achieve that cost parity, it's no brainer that we all are facing the climate issue. We want to move to that, very quickly replace all that, our carbon dominated fuels with the cleaner fuel of whether it is electricity or hydrogen. We will do that. While doing so, I think as from an industry perspective, if you ask that question, why even the industry is so, upbeat about hydrogen, I think it's, the answer to that is quite obvious, right? I mean, everybody will be looking at the ESG profile of the companies going forward, right? I mean, how they are doing on their environmental, social aspect, right? So that is one thing which everybody is looking at. The other thing is, like, it's not about just, I mean, obviously the prime point remains, tackling the climate issue, but it gives you the opportunity, right? In doing so, you're also are able to create value for your shareholders and create that next growth path for you for next 2-3 decades, right? And that is why you're seeing so much of traction on the hydrogen, right? I believe this is not like another old heights. This is pretty much real this time, because we are all there. Various pieces are already there in terms of the TRS. It's just about getting our acts together, having the policymakers, which we already seeing, various countries and the policymakers are coming on board. With that, we will be achieve the price parity, which will allow the finally the hydrogen to to go into this various sectors and help us with this climate issue, right? And just last point, what I want to mention is many of the renewable electricity developers, right, also have realized, because of the seasonal and the duality nature of the electricity production itself, right? For them to go beyond that limitation of what they can do with the electricity, I think it's a very obvious thing from them to move into the hydrogen, right? I mean, they can always supply that electricity, which is in is a real time thing, but you can always store that and make it available for for later use, right? I think that is where that whole traction is coming up. So these are the few points I just wanted to share from an Indian industry perspective. But would like to hear more from the other colleagues here. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Pandey. I think when Reliance announced this in the AGM, I think we all knew that yes, we are really moving forward now in a big way, and then this 111 kind of a logo which you have now, I think that's really something good for the Indian industry and for all the climate watchers, I think. Thanks a lot, Mr. Pandey, I think, for your views once again. We will now move over to Mr. Ravinder Vashisht. I think we earlier were expecting Dr. Ramakumar. I think he could not join at the last moment. He had something else suddenly crop up. We'll try to have him in one of the subsequent sessions. But for now, I'll request Mr. Ravinder Vashisht. He's the director with the Hexagon Composites India Private Limited, and Hexagon is one of the largest. Hexagon Group is one of the largest groups from Norway. So over to you for your views, Mr. Vashisht.
Thank you very much. Share my.
Isha, can you give us the rights for presentation sharing?
Mr. Vashisht, do you have a
Yes.
PPT?
Yeah, I will be.
So would request you to So we'll request you, since we are running late. So I just wanted to request you to be brief.
I will
try to finish up. Yeah.
Gargi, we have shared the rights.
Yes.
I hope everybody is able to see the slides.
Yes.
Yes. Please go ahead.
As far as the Hexagon Group is concerned, we are a publicly traded company from Norway, and we have combined our vision and mission statement into a very simple 3-word statement, which is about clean air everywhere. And if you look back upon the India renewable energy story, prior to the onset of the liberalization in the 90s, India was at the top of the heap in the global charts in terms of the use of renewable energy. But over a period of the last 20, 30 years, as liberalization and the progress has happened, we have been sort of declining quite a bit while many of the other countries have grown. And today, when you look at the new clean energy story that's happening simultaneously in India, while this session is about hydrogen, there is a huge push on CNG in a licensed manner. LNG, there is again a push, and that has been delicensed for the auto application. Hydrogen and electricity, of course, is quite open to any of the investors who want to work on it. So one of the challenges that comes in when I look at us as one of the stakeholders in this entire industry is that there is a confusion in the market because the investments and the efforts get fragmented across different energy sources which we are trying to pursue. So I think it's quite a time to reclaim leadership by India in this space. And the hydrogen is a great opportunity. And this is where I have some thoughts to share. If you look at us as exiting in the hydrogen value chain, we are in the storage and transportation segment of the whole thing. And here we have technologies which are already developed, proven, right from having a 350 bar storage to up to 950 bar ground storage. And as Dr. Lele earlier mentioned, I think hydrogen is a field where you can't say that I'm going to have baby steps and then grow and become somebody. I think we need to leapfrog and we need to jump technologies and then move from, as he rightly said, from gray to green. So if you look at what we've been doing globally, right from hydrogen buses to the hydrogen car, the first hydrogen train in Germany, we've been involved in almost all major hydrogen projects around the world in offering either transportation solutions or in offering solutions for transporting the gas itself from point A to point B. So we have a whole range of product competencies, so I will not spend much time on this. So what can we do in India? Now, if you look at a car abroad, they run on a 700 bar hydrogen. And in India today, 700 bar is still not even present. There are no cars. And then there are no multiple storage units on a car, which means that you end up with a very, very small range. Even with the CNG, it's extremely, extremely small. Today, trucks have to run with multiple storage units with up to 700 bar storage of hydrogen. Whereas in India, we are still discussing and doing work at 350 bar. When you look at large bulk gas transportation solutions, because until and unless, let's say, a pipeline is an option, it is going to take time, given the complexity and the size of the country. So the fastest way from an opportunity cost point of view would be to transport gas by road from point A to point B, at least, let's say, on certain national highways and so on. And here, we transport gas at half the pressures at which the rest of the world works. So consequently, our efficiency and our cost is either half or double. Now, it is extremely important to understand that in the overall energy space, one long distance truck, if you convert it into a green solution, will be able to replace 20 cars equivalent as far as emissions are concerned. So a truck requires range, and a range means storage. And as you can see, there are various solutions that are adopted globally and are in use as we speak. And these are not something that have to be developed, or these are not ideas that one is imagining for the future, but running solutions out there in the market. And India needs to start adopting to such solutions faster and in the beginning. Whereas what we often try to do is that we try to force fit a futuristic aspect into an existing, because we have a cost, target or a cost in our mind as an important aspect. Now, when you look at cost, whether it is for storage or transportation, see, there are a whole host of factors across the entire chain, right from the generation of hydrogen to, let's say, the filling and application. Now, as Reliance has very, very wonderfully stated, the 1-1-1 objective and to get the best cost. what is important and crucial for us to understand is that in this industry, small is not beautiful. We can't start on a small and medium enterprises kind of approach and say, I will promote the small scale sector, the medium scale sector, and then, I'm going to become big. That is not going to work, because the kind of investment, the technology, and the effort required is so humongous that we have no choice but to think big and act big. Now, there are again, as I said, a whole host of factors that influence choice and direction for us as a country. While all of them are quite logical, the important aspect is that we need to build upon the available solutions globally. Because if we start saying that I'm going to do something for India which is very unique, what's going to happen is that the entire cost of this development is going to come on India, which then pushes the cost up, which makes it challenging for us to say, hey, you know what, I want to achieve the 111, but then it's difficult. Rather than that, it would make a lot more sense to adopt what is already happening around the world, which means that investment has been made by somebody, paid by somebody, and we in India would pay more for the manufacturing of that particular product or solution rather than the development of that solution. That I think is a crucial factor for India to take note of if we have to leapfrog, as I said, from gray to green. And our forte here is we manufacture composite cylinders, which are about 70% lighter than steel. And they are the only solution that can be suggested and used for hydrogen, especially because of the metal embrittlement, which is a major risk when you're using hydrogen at high pressures, especially. So this is the solution that globally everyone uses. And with a service life of 20 years, this would be what we would look forward to in the coming years to offer in India. One of the facts of life, which, politically sometimes people don't like me saying this, but the fact is the user is not trying to save the planet here. Let's be clear. I want to move from point A to point B or do whatever I want, but I'm not trying to save the planet. But the government wants to save the planet. And now the investor who's in between has to saddle two entirely different targets out there by converging these two, and for which in the country, I would say three aspects are required. And I think as our friend from Niti Aayog very, very correctly mentioned, there is already a financial characteristic, taxes, duty, subsidy kind of approach that has already been taken by the government, which is an excellent option. The second, which as a company in this field with a technology, a challenge we find is that the statutory changes or the statutory rules, whether it be the import duties, and I'm here not talking about reducing import duties. I'm talking about how do you import a product into the country initially because you need to demonstrate it or something like that. Now, in all of these statutory aspects, there is a black hole. And in the context of that, what happens is you get judged by the existing rather than by the new, which then pushes your cost up further by another 20-30%. So it's very easy to say that I want to have a low cost when the system does not allow you to bring that cost down because of the fact that nobody knows what you're offering. And the third is, I think, as I mentioned a little earlier, a policy direction, and then the market can drive it further to decide whether a fleet owner wants a hydrogen truck or whether somebody else wants to use, maybe CNG, whatever. But I think we need to give a broad policy direction and then leave it to the market to move forward, because at the end of the day, the user will demand the best at the best price and the investor will try to meet that. So I think this convergence of interest, if you're able to make, and in the Indian context, I think hydrogen is probably a great opportunity for us to leapfrog from the existing technologies to the latest and the futuristic technology in India. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies. Thank you so much. have one question.
Yes, sir.
In composite with the carbon fiber, what you're talking
Yes.
about?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Vashisht. I think for highlighting this aspect of the need for leapfrogging. I think that small is not beautiful in the hydrogen space. So I think it was a nice presentation referring to this broader issue which you have mentioned in the presentation. I'll now quickly request Mr. Berntski. He's the CEO of CMR Prototech, another Norwegian company which is in the clean tech space, focusing on RE, R&D. So over to you, Mr. Ski, for your comments. Yeah, I think you also have this presentation. So I think being the last one, I think I will request you to again be brief. I think we will have opportunities in the near future again for a couple of more such interactions. So over to you, sir.
Thank you. I will try to be brief. I just want to say a couple of words on the company, Prototech, and its history. It dates back to Christian Michelsen Research, the first research institute in Norway, and it's for all the time we've been part of many great developments within space and energy. I'll do this real quickly now. We used to be owned by Christian Michelsen Research, but recently we were acquired by Aker Group, which is an industrial investment company with ownership interest in renewable energy, green technologies, maritime assets, marine biotechnology, oil and gas, and also industrial software. So Aker has a turnover of approximately 75 billion NOK and a workforce of 28,000 people. So we're now in a position to do a little bit more than what we used to do as part of an institute. We have been within hydrogen and fuel cell technology for quite a while. We started and developed the first high temperature system in 1991 together with Statoil. It was a 10 kilowatt Einar solid oxide fuel cell system. And in 2010, we had a passenger vessel running on hydrogen in the harbor of Bergen, in the western part of Norway where we are situated. Also, we have done a 20 kilowatt bioseg, this is biogas high temperature fuel cell solution in 2014. And we have, as I said, a long history of taking technology from space down to the ocean space. Left is our founding father. The rocket you see is the Ferdinand 1, the first rocket from Norwegian soil in 1962. We developed equipment for Ariane 5, the gimbal joint, for many years, and we are now delivering hardware to the NASA ESA cooperative, the Orion spacecraft, which is going to be used for the Moon and Mars. And we're not only delivering hydrophobic filters hardware, we're also developing energy systems. One of them is the one to the left here. It's a regenerative fuel cell system, which is used for energy storage and heat to survive the lunar night. The lunar night is 14 days and the temperature goes down to 120 something below zero. So traditional batteries won't fix it. To the right is a solid oxide system we're going to develop now we are working on this for Mars, which is then going to use in situ resources to run through a fuel cell so you don't have to bring fuel to Mars. It's a long journey. But of course, what we're interested in to see what other areas is this technology relevant. And of course, this is where energy prices are high and where the quality is of great importance. So we end up, in many cases, in the ocean space. And in Norway, we see that offshore gas turbines, they emit more than 2/3 of the total emissions on the Norwegian continental shelf. So we started there and we developed this concept, the CHEOP, the clean, highly efficient offshore power concept, which is actually a combination of PEM, the traditional PEM that you find in cars, but also the solid oxide high temperature fuel cell system, which is different in the sense that it can actually chew also other fuels, not just clean hydrogen. It can actually run on natural gas, on biogas, on ammonia, and it's fuel flexible and it's very efficient with regard to electrical efficiency, more than 60%, And also you can add on maybe 20% additional efficiency in this. And it can also then, for us, play a really important part in the shipping side, because we talked a lot about the onshore, the bikes, the buses, and three-wheelers and so forth. But our focus has been very much on delivering large systems for the shipping industry, and particularly for the deep sea shipping industry. So we see that is mainly because the IMO has put on some regulations that are really pushing ship owners to bring down their emissions to at least 50% by 2050. And the ships running in 2050 are being planned now. So there's really a push from not just the ship owners, but also from the consumer side. There's a demand for emission-free products. So we see that they're really pushing it. We talked about CO2 taxes in the regulatory side, really important. And we see that cost reductions in clean fuels due to this great expansion of renewable power coming into the market is going to be really good over the next 10 years or so. And we have the technologies available, more or less. Even now, combustion engines are prepared to run on ammonia before long, and we are developing solid oxide. This is just some statistics showing that LNG will still play an important part going forward. So choosing an engine rather than choosing a fuel is of great importance, because if you can then choose a high temperature fuel cell system that we are developing, it can run on multiple fuels. So for deep sea shipping, this has to do with energy density and space available for fuel and so forth. We really are of the opinion that solid oxide fuel cells will turn out to be the winner. And we're working on two very large demonstration projects today. One of them is the Ship FC project. This one is designed then to put up a 2 megawatt system for a ship, Viking Energy, for Eidesvik. And you see the partners below. We've got Equinor, Eidesvik, and this is also funded by the EU. The Ship FC is also funded by the European Union. So this is quite a large project, 300 million NOK. The one to the right is the Odfjell Chemical Tankers Company, where we are going to develop an auxiliary power engine, also based on high temperature fuel cells, which is of 1.2 megawatts. And we do this together then with Odfjell, Lundin is the oil companies here, and Wärtsilä is also part of both of these for the electrical distribution and also the fuel gas handling. So, and as you said earlier, there's a need for infrastructure to test this. So we had just an open place close to where we live here now in the Bergen, where the Prime Minister opened it, and we're going to do the large part of our demonstrations before installing them on the ships at this place. And of course, going back to Norway, India, I feel that Prototech, together with all the Norwegian companies, part of this Center of Excellence, will provide some really special competence and make it available to India. And we feel that the possibility of leapfrogging, jumping from, there is a lot of possibilities to move forward together, and we see this as a great opportunity. I have set up some particular now companies to do so. So I don't want to spend too much time. I think we'll finish here and maybe give the word back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I think for being brief, I think this is an area, I think deep sea fishing, I think there has not been much discussion in India on this sector, at least internally, as I remember. I think the report which we also put up on hydrogen was silent on shipping, but we know that this is an area where opportunities do exist, but more analytical work and also the expertise which is available with you and with other Norwegian companies around the world, as well as other countries, that really needs to be adopted in India at scale, I think, in this particular segment as well. So thank you, sir, I think, for your comments. I think I don't have any other comments to offer. We are already, I think, around 20 minutes behind schedule, and I'll give it back to Diksha. I think we have a formal vote of thanks now, I think, from Mr. Carter. Is it
Thank you.
Mr. Carter? I think, yeah. Okay, over to you, Diksha.
Thank you so much, sir, and all the panelists here. I would like to call Mr. Carter for the vote of thanks. Over to you, Mr. Carter.
Thank you. As we have exceeded time, I will be very short, but on behalf of Innovation Norway and the Norwegian mission, we thank the distinguished speakers from both the public and private sector, Mr. Sachin Kumar and Mrs. Sturla Pedersen for setting the context, and Mr. Manu Kumar Upadhyay, Dr. Ashish Lele, Dr. Anurag Pandey, Mr. Ravinder Vashisht, and Mr. Bernd Schreier from CMR Probotech. It has been a very enriching session, and we at Innovation Norway hope to be instrumental in technical and knowledge collaboration between Norway and India. Let me also finally extend our appreciation to TERI for moderating this session and for partnering with us in organizing this event. Thank you all very much.
So I think with this we come to the end. I would just like to also mention, I think that we have got a few questions, but maybe we'll work with Innovation Norway to how to really answer those questions. We have some on the chat box, but we also got separately also at the time of registration from many of the participants. So maybe Gagi, one of these days we'll just discuss and see how we can respond to some of those questions. Thanks everybody from my side.
Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.